Alex, good to see you.
Hi.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, first of all, and how you got into the energy sector.
Okay, well, I was at university in Bath studying economics, and I did a sandwich placement. And I started at National Power in their energy trading team, managing a small gas INC portfolio. So knew nothing about the whole energy industry, but had a fantastic time, had a great boss at National Power. And through that, we sold some customers to Amerada. So those who've been in the industry since the 90s at least will remember Amerada Hess, who were running an energy marketing firm. And I joined them straight out of university, and that was I did 4 years.
If you're doing economics, obviously, dare I say, mate, we're in the city, banking, all those great careers out there. What was it about the energy, bit of your course that you thought, actually, this is where I want to be?
Well, I think it was working at National Power on the trading floor there, where they were commissioning gas power stations. Yeah. And even though I was doing economics, I really liked the engineering, and I liked the commercial side, and I liked talking to customers and building up that small INC portfolio. And just something about it just grabbed me. I mean,
what did your mum and dad say when you said, right, I'm going to work in energy?
I don't think they really understood it, because I think at the time it is how do you buy gas and electricity from someone other than the gas board?
Exactly.
And I just explained it's just like anything else. You just it is a commodity that you can buy, and you bundle up other services with it to make it work for your customers.
What sort of time is this? Did regulations happen then?
So this is I'm going to give away my age, aren't I? So this is I did this in '96, the placement, and then I graduated in '98, and then I joined Amerada.
So we're talking about 20 years ago, where the market was still sort of finding its feet, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Was it interesting times?
I think it was very interesting. I think the dash for gas, building all these power stations, it was very much the centralised model rather than what we are going into now, which is decentralised. But I think it was really interesting opening up competition to domestic customers and finding out what works for them and how getting them to switch. So Amerada, if we move on to that stage, was it's a big oil and gas company, right. And they decided to set up an energy marketing firm in the UK. So we started from 0 customers, built up a considerable domestic customer base, and INC and trading floor based in London, next door to Enron, for other places.
Didn't pick up any tips from them.
No, we probably drank in the same pub. I think exactly. That was about it. Yeah.
And then from there, where did you move on to from there? So did you stay in the sort of trading side of energy? No,
I was on the domestic side. I was heading up business development there eventually. I was originally managing partnerships for Amerada, and I left as head of business development. The company took the decision to sell the business. So TXU bought Amerada, and then they went bust. They left the UK, shall I say, about a year after that. So I left to go and work for one of our suppliers, an IT solutions business, very small. Worked for them for a couple of years, and then I joined an insurance company.
Whoa!
Yeah, I know.
So you've just left energy like that?
Yeah, so I was working in energy for the IT solutions business, but other things as well. RAL, they were building systems that integrate platforms basically for to transfer data. Like from that, I was thinking of that, and I was thinking that is pretty cool stuff. But it wasn't a very big company. I left them after 2 years and joined an insurance company called Domestic & General. And had a great time. I worked for them for 8 years. So I've worked all over Europe. I worked in Australia for 4 years. Yeah. So, but they originally went into them because they had an energy portfolio. Okay. So they did all the insurance underwriting for boiler insurance, which a lot of the energy companies sell as part of their package. I was out in Australia. Surfing? No, I wasn't surfing. I was living in Melbourne, setting up an insurance business over there. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that sort of start-up culture that you have, and thought, this is brilliant, I want to do more of this. So when I came back and was in a big corporate again, I decided to leave, and I eventually joined Gemserv on the management team here, looking after the business development. And I think they quite liked the broad experience of setting up a business, growing it, but having, working in a big corporate as well at the same time. And I really like working in the energy industry. It feels very comfortable. It's it feels challenging from the commercial aspects that go on. I like the fact that it touches everyone. It has it's interesting. I think it has, even though the reputation, it's been a political football industry, it has a lot of public good elements to it.
Without doubt. Yeah, I've always said that as well.
And the stuff that Gemserv does, which is in the energy efficiency space, is really, really, really good. I mean, we attract people, millennials, who are, and people as old as me, who are really interested in the energy in environmental matters.
Let's talk about the Gemserv model. So explain to the viewers what Gemserv is, how it came about, and what its core principles were, and how it's developed from there.
Okay, so in '98, so I go back to when I joined the industry, the domestic switching was created for electricity customers. So when you move from, British Gas to Npower or whatever, you need a set of arrangements, sets of systems to make that work, and you need to have, those systems need to be centralised for the industry, so that everyone's moving around the same rules. There's a governance arrangement around that, so if you need, because obviously things change over time, you want to change that, the industry is self-governed. So a company called Marasco was created in '98. In 2002, Gemserv was, I suppose, spun out of that, if you like. So Gemserv still operates the contract to run Marasco, the MRA, Master Registration Agreement. But Gemserv was created to give a wider set of goals and opportunities for the staff that are here, rather than just one contract. So the industry is famous for having special purpose vehicles that just do one thing. So Gemserv was originally created for that purpose, but has grown, in lots of different ways.
But it was an industry-created body, because what was interesting is looking at the history of it, from what I think, you could have thought that the government would have created something like this, or it could have come out of Ofgem, but it was basically the sector itself funding it, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it's, I think there are other examples in finance where you have a centralised system around, MasterCard or Visa or whatever, but the industry was set up to be self-governed. I mean, there's still, the regulator still obviously performs the role of the regulator for the industry, but in terms of incremental changes, that's the responsibility of the industry. And it has worked well. The industry has moved with the times. It's enabled a huge number of people to switch each month. So we look after the systems and the processes, and we support the industry in doing exactly that. And
so who owns Gemserv?
So Gemserv is owned by 19 shareholders. 9 of them are the main shareholders. They are the big 6 energy companies and 3 distribution networks. The actual distribution of shares is related to the electricity licenses they had at the point when the company was set up.
Wasn't that always the thing that strikes me as this is that you have an element? It's a bit like in the journalism world, the Press Complaints Council. Staffed by journalists, funded by the press organisations. But wasn't there always an issue with this, that you've got the industry itself setting the rules by which the industry operates? And how independent is Gemserv of the shareholders and their pressures as big companies saying, guys, we want to do it this way?
Yeah, okay, that's a very fair comment. In terms of our governance structure as a company, we have a board of directors. On that board there is one shareholder representative or representative from the shareholder community. The other 5 directors are independent of that. So that's sort of our structure. Yeah. In terms of the way that we operate, we support and manage the codes, we have specific responsibilities to act equally to all participants. And in terms of representation on the codes, they are structured in such a way as to give representation for smaller suppliers and larger suppliers.
Which is what I was going to go on to. Obviously, when Gemserv was set up, there was no idea about where the market will be now. How have you managed to keep the, let's put it this way, the not favourability, but the openness for a market to be equal to the smaller players? So if a smaller player now comes in, as there so many are, how do they know they're going to get the same equal chance of applying for managing the codes compared to one of the big 6? So what have you done, or what's in the DNA of Gemserv to say, actually, we can see what is needed, so we'll create the parameters around the code not to bias the smaller players?
So, well, the representation is, as I said, we have particular responsibilities to help all participants, and I think that manifests itself for smaller ones, where we provide a critical friend service to make sure that they can navigate through the codes as they need to get there. I mean, I wouldn't go, it's not perfect, right?
No,
so,
of course, no.
But what I would say, it's enabled a hell of a lot of investment into this sector. I think it needs to change, right? So we've been promoting a vision of how codes need to change to really try and catch up with technology. I think it's a classic one in energy. You've got technologies driving lots and lots of change. Businesses are catching up, and then the regulations sort of really
it comes third, doesn't it? Yeah, absolutely.
It's lagging behind, and we think there's a better way of doing that, and we've been actively promoting that in what we do. However, within the contracts we currently run, we work with smaller suppliers, but you know, if they and to get them involved in what's going on here, and you know, we try. There's sandbox arrangements so they can try out new models and things like that. So we're doing what we can within the structure that's there to make it a level playing field, because it's important. You know, it's all about switching.
Where is Gemserv now? So obviously it started off as enabling switching, simply. The market has gone infinitely more complex, particularly in the last sort of 5 to 6 years. Where are you now? What do you do now? And then where will you be going to?
Okay, so we've gone from that major contract around electricity switching into 12 other major contracts in the energy space. We also have acquired a business called Red Island. We did that in 2009, which is an information security business, and we sell that to a whole range of different industries. We've recently acquired, a few months ago, we acquired 2 other businesses that are about deepening our role in the energy sector and moving into digital transformation space within that. So we are moving in different directions. I suppose if I chunk up where our business currently comes in, we do a lot of work around energy efficiency with BAYS. So we're running a number of different sort of industry programs around biomass, heat networks, microgeneration. In the code space, we're heavily involved in smart metering through the CCAS contract, Smart Energy Code. Your listeners, we're working out all these acronyms. We do some work around testing of smart metering equipment. We're doing work with security of smart metering equipment. So we've broadened out into the energy space in the areas where you'd expect us to be.
And do you see yourselves as, from what you're saying, it looks like you're sort of facilitating innovation, or are you just making sure that as these innovations come, there's always, coming back to the core message, there's a fair way of people getting the contracts and getting the ability to use whatever the new things are?
I would say that we are about innovation ourselves within our context. I think we also facilitate innovation. We work with new entrants like Upside Energy and Verve in terms of helping them with what they want to do. So we facilitate in that angle, in that respect. The heat network business contract we've just won will be helping businesses come in and fund heat networks that are going to be set up across the country. So we're doing a bit of both. I think we're, in our own way, we are innovating, but we're also facilitating the change. And actually the change is creating more opportunities for us to help drive the industry forward.
How do you balance commercially driving with perhaps doing things that aren't that actually commercially important, but are actually important for where the sector is? Do you see what I mean? Where you have a sort of an altruistic side, which is how do we help the industry, which you've talked about. Yeah. But actually, you've got a business side, which is we've got to make money by doing the deals that facilitate this. How do you balance the two?
I'd see it the other way around, actually. So I would see it as, I think it's a sign of an efficient business where you make a profit. Yeah. But I think that doesn't distract us from what we want to do in the industry, and we're very clear about that at the board and right the way through the company in terms of, I don't sound corny, but doing the right thing in what we do. And we do take risks, and we do things that perhaps aren't obviously commercial, but we turn them into a commercial proposition over time by building out our capabilities.
Let's take an example, right, which is where we've talked about how the market has changed. Without doubt, I hate the bloody word, but everyone uses it, the prosumer word, right? So a big user, they're all talking to us, about having their facilities behind the meter, using their self-generation, using heat networks, using batteries, etc. How do you see your codes and what you do right now applying to the fact that a supplier may not be what a supplier is now or was in the future? How will you adjust when the consumer is the supplier and you suddenly have to provide them a way of actually perhaps selling their energy or distributing their energy?
So we think the way the industry is regulated, and which includes the codes, needs to change pretty fundamentally.
Right.
So that it is...
Well, it's not fit for purpose because where we are.
I think it will increasingly become a challenge, because I think what you need to do is you need to regulate down at your business model.
Yes.
So it might be different from Jeff's business model. And
thank God for that. That's what I can say.
And you might want to, and I think the regulation needs to take account of that and look at you from a risk perspective. Is your business failing going to fundamentally change the way the industry operates? Yes. Jeff's business, perhaps not. So that's the approach.
And will that come into play, particularly with supply license? They're so complicated, and we've seen all these smaller suppliers over the last 18 months, the last 5 months really going under, and a lot of the chat has been, maybe it's because the system wasn't geared or the rules were too complicated and these people couldn't cope with it and they were put in when they shouldn't have been put in. That could only get worse when businesses start to supply as well into the market, can't it?
I think I have some sympathy with that, because having worked for a small supplier in the past, a new entrant, I think things have got better. I think...
but you had Ofgem itself saying perhaps the rules were too lenient in that rush to get as many, different sources out there. They perhaps didn't look at the integrity of how stable, those companies are.
I think it's very hard, because I think if you're setting up a business, if you get to several 100,000 customers, your turnover is £150 million a year. It's getting quite large at that point. I don't know, when you first start, that organisation comes for a licence and it's got no customers. So how do you could ask for a bond, but a bond will never be big enough for that. I think it's a case of having the rules so they're adaptable over time and look at different business models. So if you're coming in and you're, a community energy player, we're going to be quite limited in size, really. I think the rules need to be different for you than perhaps someone who's supplying 6 million homes.
Do you see Gemserv as having a campaigning role then?
I think where we have something to add, we get our message across. We are apolitical though, so we don't drive we could go on to Brexit.
We'll knock Brexit in a bit, I'm sure, but
no, we talk about the things that we know something about in the sense of codes. So we have a view on where the codes should.
Yeah, but you say that you don't think they're fit for purpose right now. So
I said that they're coming under increasing challenge because of the prosumer, because of technology driving change.
Okay. So if you see that, would you then go to Ofgem or go to government and the conversations that you have and say, guys, look, I think from where we sit in the industry, these things have to be different?
We do. We are talking to Ofgem at the board level there. We are talking to BEIS at very senior levels. We are talking to our shareholders. We're talking to the industry about this and where our ideas. We publish those ideas. We have those papers are on our website, and they explore how we think the industry needs to change from a regulatory perspective. That particular angle that we have. I mean, on other areas we worked on around the energy efficiency schemes, we have told our clients where we think things might be going wrong and advised them where there may be loopholes in the schemes to make them better and serve that sort of that greater purpose there.
Where's the biggest challenge coming up in the next 2 years?
What, for Gemserv or for the industry?
For the industry.
For the industry, I think continuing to deal with the change that's coming through, with new entrants like, Electron and, so on, continuing to challenge industry norms through the decentralisation of energy with people producing, or companies producing their own energy and supplying themselves. What do you do with the costs of that currently, so part of your energy bill is paying for the wires, paying for the pipes. If you're supplying yourself with electricity,
why should I?
Why should you? Yeah, exactly. So I think these are some of the changes. That's probably a bit further than 2 years, to be fair. That one, But there's a scrutiny on codes at the moment, looking at how they will change. So these are some of the challenges that we see. EVs, it is a bit of lots of different. There's massive expansion in.
It's a bit like Emperor's New Clothes, I think, EVs, because we can all say that it will happen, but it's like some people are real advocates of it and some people aren't. And at the end of the day, it's the relationship like you've just seen with BMW and Tesco putting in chargers in, that's the thing that drives these changes. But for businesses and for our audience, a lot of them are looking at them as energy storage devices. So do you see that as a player rather than the kind of straightforward EV, just what I'm saying?
Yeah, very much so, and it's connected into the smart metering installation as well. So the ability to control your load within your household so that you can charge up at the right time, but also discharge from the car at the right time as well. I mean, for me, if I were to break it down to sort of a good example, I've got a friend who's a petrol head,
right? And
I was away with him the weekend. And he said, my next car's a Tesla. I thought, really? Because it makes so much sense. I've got charge at home, I can charge at work. Why wouldn't I do that?
Absolutely. And the acceleration is insane speed.
Exactly. Exactly. That was it. So and that for me was, that when people were saying that, then I think it's going to move fast.
Before we end, I want to pick up on two other areas. One is international. We'll talk about Brexit in a moment, but data. When you started in the industry, data was probably bits of paper, dare I say, and there was a bit going on. The way it's progressed in literally the last 2.5 years, plus the way that the public are aware of data trust issues with the things in Facebook and things like that. The implementation of chips in your fridge, my bloody phone, my watch talks to me constantly when I'm trying not to talk to it. Your cars, your pumps will be having chips on them. The amount of data that we're flowing for end users, which is the route for them managing their energy. How big a challenge do you see the software side of energy being?
I think there's a lot of investment going into this space. So I worry more about the security, actually.
Cybersecurity?
Yeah, cybersecurity, and making sure that it is fit for purpose. So, we're doing a lot of work at the moment around Internet of Things security. So there's a hell of a lot of effort gone into smart metering security, and into the home. But then, people buying products in their home that perhaps aren't secure, and I worry about that. I haven't quite answered your question, but that's the way we look at it is more from a security angle. So we see data and technology as having a huge value into energy, into healthcare, public sectors. Could totally change how the public sector deals with people.
But the point I'm trying to get at, we've had so many things with the industry can't even meter properly that people say, have you got the ability to keep data secure? Yeah. Are these things that you're looking at, which definitely will be part of future codes and the way business is done is, hey, if you're going to be a supplier, what are you going to do with that person's data?
There's data protection rules around what you do with the data, and there's strict rules around how you secure that data within the smart metering approach. It's always been interesting to me around how we've estimated bills in the past.
Yeah.
So why bother really to be that technology driven? Because what are you going to really add? I think smart metering just changes all of that. What's really interesting, when I joined the industry in the 90s, we were talking about smart metering then. But anyway, we're on the cusp of it now, and I think for me, it's a massive enabler, and that the data coming out of that will be hugely transformative.
Let's before we end, let's talk the B words. When we're filming this, today's the day of the vote. God knows what will happen. We'll find out anyway. But putting aside whatever happens, internationally, with things like the interconnectors and trading and all of that, how do you feel this turbulence will be seen and dealt with? Will this be a real ground shift changing moment, do you think? In 5 years' time, we'll look back as, when prices went in 2008 and things like that? Or do you think actually the industry will just carry on regardless? And what will happen, as a lot of people have said to me, is, well, let Brexit happen. The fact is we've still got trade energy and we'll find a way of doing it.
I think personal view, as a company that's apolitical, I'm a Remainer, but I think it's not a good thing for the country, obviously. But I do think the industry will get through it. There will be deals done. We will trade through the interconnectors. We will continue doing what we need to do in Ireland. So we have the business in Ireland. So we have some sort of impact on that. I mean, I worry, for our staff. So we are reliant on international staff here.
Of course.
But we will find a way through that as well. We've put in mitigating approaches to what we think.
But one of the things I think that people have talked about is going back, putting the two things together we just talked about, the digital information transfer. In a way, some people have talked about it, and maybe it's bullshit, frankly, but digital energy, where you'll buy energy generated in another part of the world and you'll trade it somewhere else. And it's just literally you're buying the ones and zeros because the way you'll distribute it will change. Looking forward, do you see the international side of energy becoming more important? Not just simple things like LNG and stuff like that, but if we get a European supergrid, if we get other things that are coming together, do you think that it's actually, despite whatever happens with Brexit, will be much more integrated globally on the energy
Well, I think that's one of the problems with Brexit, is that we already are so integrated across all of these sectors, from food to travel to energy. I think it's just going to increasingly become more integrated over time across these areas. I'm not particularly au fait about how you trade internationally. Trade in the UK, you can do that without touching the energy now, so I guess you could do it internationally.
What's your vision finally for Gemserv? And you're a young boss, definitely a young boss. So, as a young man taking over quite a sort of clearly sounds an ambitious company, what do you want to do? Where do you want to see it? Because you talked about a little bit about kind of, I want to see some changes, I want to do some, not campaigning as such, but driving agendas. What's your vision?
So we want to expand the company further. We have we're just putting in place a new 5-year strategy for the business, and we want to grow out in the energy industry into decentralised generation, EVs, wherever the industry goes. We want to continue, as you say, speaking out where we think we have a view and we think that there's a better way of doing things, as we continue to do now. We want to also grow out the work we do with government. We've acquired a business that has a really good foothold with government, doing digital services, helping us as citizens trade with government, and we want to do more of that. And we've got a bit of a foothold now in healthcare. We can see a lot of value we can add in the same way that we've done in energy into healthcare as well. So we haven't talked about that. I mean, most of our business is in energy, and I'm sure it will continue to be so for some time.
But wider horizons.
But wider horizons, creating really exciting careers for the people that work here and making a difference in wherever we operate.
And finally, you still going to be in energy in 5 years' time?
I suspect so.
Stuck to it.
I like it. It's fun. It's really interesting characters like your good self, I think it's changing really fast. I think
and I think that's a real thing that keeps people going, because you get the refreshment, don't you, of a new challenge coming together.
I think although we kick it, and everyone's, this kind of political football, as I said earlier, we are actually, I was chatting to a Japanese company, and Japan's modelling its deregulation on the UK. And actually, when I was in Australia, it's very similar. Yeah. It's held up as the model, and we are moving.
Should we be proud of that?
Yeah, I think we should. I think it's a great industry.
Excellent. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.